My experience with community has been quite diverse and in a number of different countries. And they have been retreat center communities. They have been work-related communities, like worker collective communities in which we've lived together and worked together. They have been cooperative types of communities in which people have just chosen to live together in cities as well as outside of cities. So the range of possibility of community is quite diverse. I think there was a community once in Victoria that I was a part of called the One Heart community, and the word was Karanam, and that means the one heart. And so we were using that as the principal theme upon which we had all of our relationships with each other. And so this was really an important way in which we connected. Before we get into the actual key ingredients, it might be good to know the landscape. And the landscape of community is to do with relational fields, relational energetic fields. So life is about relationships. This is the inner journey. And the first relational field is the relationship with the one, oneself. And when this has really solid foundational connection to Mother Earth and one feels it inside of oneself, then one can move to the next relational field. The sad thing in life is that most people are going into the interpersonal, the other relational field, before they've done the composting of the earth in their own garden. And so it is really, really important to compost the earth in your own garden. This is a major life project. It's not something that can just happen. It's a journey. It's actually a lifelong journey. But before we go into the interpersonal, we certainly want to have some of our garden, our inner temple, well cared for, well nourished, well nurtured. The second relational field then is this interpersonal. And of course that is where people become challenged because they don't have the life skills to be able to relate, not just with other people, but it's true they don't have the skills to relate with nature, the elements, other creatures, life in general. A lack of having the skills because they have never been offered either educationally or in the cultures that we grow up in. The third landscape energetically of relationship is community. So in that we're looking at more the collective relational field of how can we get along as a group together, how can we collaborate, how can we cooperate, how can we love one another regardless of what's going on. And of course the challenge that most people experience is how do we deal with our own shadow, and then how do we deal with the shadow of another person. This is not easy. We have great difficulty in embracing someone else's shadow. Actually, the reality of that is when we have difficulty embracing the reality of someone else's shadow, really, it is only a reflection of our own. So I'll come to what some of the essential ingredients are in a minute, but when it comes to the shadow that comes up from people, which is needed to come up, it needs to come to the surface for healing and for transformation, for metamorphosis. So when when it comes up, we have to have the skills to be able to take self-responsibility. What Krishnamurti has said is that the observed, or the observer, is who one is. So whatever you see out there in life is actually you. That's all you're doing when you're looking out through your eyes, is you're actually seeing your own reality. The way that you relate to life, the way you understand it. This is what this relational field is. We are getting feedback to help us with our own personal evolution. So it becomes much more complex. So it moves from, in the interpersonal, it's what we call complicated. As it moves into the community field, it becomes much more confused, much more complex. The last relational field is our relationship with Mother Earth, with the elements, with the rain, the sun, the water, the spirit energies, the celestial sounds, and the greater universe. So there's an order in which in life we need to go through to be able to live with all of these other relational fields. But it begins with the self. Everything goes on inside of oneself. So cultivating and inhabiting your own existence in a wholesome way, in a holistic way, is vital if one wants to move into the interpersonal relational field. And then once having had some success in that area, then one can move into being in community with other people. This is a major work of study, process, self-development, and it takes time. Now, the way one can start to acquire some of the skills that are necessary to really celebrate life and live with oneself requires practices, embodied practices. We cannot do it through consciousness and words alone. Of course, the practices are diverse. They're different most probably for everyone, but there are some foundational ones that are common to everyone. So the practices, if I simplified it, are to do with grounding, having a relationship to Mother Earth. That is where our understanding of life comes from. Our reality is related to what goes on as we walk the path of life, one step at a time. Okay. So being really well grounded and becoming familiar with what that is, to be comfortable to stand on your own feet. And how you do that, that's a practice. The next practice, possibly as important, maybe if not more important, is how to breathe.
How to breathe.
How to breathe, yes. So learning how to receive the gift of air, of oxygen, of life force, and be able to share back with the trees what we don't need, and it becomes nourishment for the other parts of our universe. So there's this giving and receiving process that goes on. And the breath is a giving and a receiving. Actually, there's the one and the same thing, because the tree breathes in what we don't need, and we breathe in what they offer us and give. So really there's no difference between the receiving and the giving.
True.
And then when we, of course, translate that into the greater aspects and meanings of life, we see that, language creates polarity, and really receiving and giving are one. And often when you give a present, for instance, to someone, there's so much celebration and joy in the giving, okay, as much as in the receiving.
Absolutely.
Yes. So that teaches us, okay, an understanding about receiving and giving is about sharing, and where sharing leads into togetherness, and togetherness leads into being together in community. So all these things are related. Maybe another aspect of a practice, okay, that's important would be centering. Being in your hara, being in the center, being in your womb, being in your creative center, okay, understanding that. So the challenge for most of us is being able to maintain and stay in our emotional center. And as soon as we have an interaction with another person, then our feelings are experienced and we experience the other person's feelings. And feelings are little understood, and particularly our understanding of our own feelings has not been explored by most people really, really deeply and passionately. And then we're very easily triggered by other people's feelings, especially the feelings that we're uncomfortable with inside of ourselves. So maintaining your emotional center is an art form when you're in the presence of another, and that again relates to having a self-development process that you've been in, that your temple, your inner temple, is calm, is steady inside. It has a sense of appreciation, a sense of self-worth, a sense of self-acknowledgement that you're okay. And when you feel that you're okay, that there's a wholeness inside of you, that you're a good person, and that you have gifts to share in this lifetime, then at that point, okay, you're able to receive the emotional energies that come from wherever they come from, whether it's a thunderstorm or whether it's beautiful rays of the sunshine like we're getting right now, okay, you're able to be thankful for all of them. And you don't differentiate between the dark, so-called shadow sides of ourselves and those emotional things. We have gratitude when these things come up. When you ask a person around their understanding of Tantra, you get a very wide range of perspectives and ideas of what this means. And it has been mainly defined by the masculine up until now, whether it's written or whether it's a traditional practice. Tantra is something much more than the Tantra we generally experience. But I can offer you certainly my own unique understanding of what I think of when we say the word Tantra. So for me, Tantra is a vibration. It's a vibration that's going on around, inside the trees, the grass, the earth, inside your body, inside my body, and it's attuning to all of this. And we as humans have the capability, much more than we realize, of attuning and harmonizing with these various vibrations. When you do the practices, so I just gave some examples. I gave grounding, breathing and centering as an example. We could go also to states of mind, and there are other types of practices, okay? But when you do these practices consistently, day after day, these are what all the traditions have done. They do regular practices. You need to discover what your regular practice is. Maybe your regular practice is singing. Maybe it's being in the garden. Maybe it's walking through the forest. Maybe it's helping somebody. it has so many forms, but you certainly need to know what the ones are that nourish you. I can share with you what my practices are, which is I begin the day, almost every day, with moving my body, and then I go into a very short meditation, very short. Then I go into doing some yoga, then dancing, and then I repeat that pattern. That's just the one I've created for myself because I enjoy it, and I don't have to sit there for 20 minutes. My meditations in my morning practice are 4 or 5 minute meditations of sitting there. And then in my own process as well, I do quite a lot of voice work. So I do different sorts of sound, creating sounds, arming, singing, while all of this is going on. And it's a creative process. So every day it's changing. So that is how I do my practices. I notice that from the moment I begin to the moment I end, there is a different vibrational state inside of me. And that practice has taken me into a vibrational state that is a higher vibration, which I call a tantric vibration. Okay, that's what then I carry with me into my day. Now, if in my own field, okay, I'm sometimes either working with adults, I'm working with children, I'm sometimes doing hands-on. I then have practices in my daily life, in my work, okay, in what I earn, what I earn, do for a living, in my right livelihood, okay. And then I have other times, like coming to a festival in which I'm just celebrating life, but I'm exploring my Tantra all the time, my vibration, particularly either my vibration with other humans, other people there, enjoying their company. So how I would express that would be, I am having gratitude for their presence. I'm enjoying their company. They don't have to say anything, just my presence and their presence is enough. And in that process, as you can remember, we were just doing a men's and a women's circle together. And Bella was expressing, all we need is your presence. Just stand there, let us be together energetically. Let's honor each other. Go ahead.
I would like to ask about festivals. What kind of magnitude of influence these festivals bring to the community and the society in general?
Well, I think that it gives an opportunity for people to come together, first of all. That's a wonderful opportunity, and it's a wonderful gift for people. It's an opportunity for them to wake up to some new things in their life in all probability, because they're going to be around people who do things differently. And also at festivals, there are certain things that are being offered, and so new learning can potentially take place. New experiences can be had in one's inner world. Okay. I would say, though, that in relationship to the Tantra, okay, it's just in the early stages now at Tantra festivals. They're evolving here. What I would like to see is a deeper understanding of the two archetypes that I think are the primal archetypes for having a healthy tantric community, which is understanding the archetype of the divine feminine and the divine masculine that is inside every man and woman. This is the one that really needs to be explored to begin to understand the Tantra that goes on inside. This leads to, when you have an understanding and an experience, as a felt sense, it's a somatic experience inside of yourself, of your own divinity, of your masculine divinity and your feminine divinity, okay, at that point you can move into the archetype of the lover. There are steps here on the journey of us understanding ourselves. And because we're social human beings, we move quite quickly to want to be with somebody else. We want to hold and be held. We want to touch and be touched. We want to love and be loved. These are just natural and very beautiful and much needed. But I would say that you were asking me earlier, okay, around what some of the key ingredients might be. And so ownership is learning about what ownership is. To own not just yourself, but to have the responsibility for the earth, for everything that is in your field of experience and vision. You, and then the second one would be, which she talked about earlier, would be self-responsibility. Not only do you need to take ownership, that you are the guardian in this lifetime of taking care of all this incredible experience, but also then you've got to take self-responsibility and say, what does self-responsibility mean? Self-responsibility moves you into a place where we call participation. So you need to be actively engaged. You can't be the audience of life. You don't want to be the audience of your own life. You want to be a participant. You want to step up and say, I'm going to contribute. I'm going to make a difference. And each one of us will do it in our own unique way. Some quieter, some more outwardly, but we are all are snowflakes, beautiful, crystalline, unique snowflakes. And each one of us has a meaning and a purpose and a contribution to make. And we need to discover and figure out what that is. Now, once we've moved into participation and engagement, then of course what comes to the surface, which is you're reading couples relationships books or whatever it is, there comes up the challenge of the differences. How do we reconcile? How do we work with our human differences? Okay, and create some compatibility, some union. We want union. We want a sense of belonging, of connectedness, and a celebration and enjoyment that we live together. We're a tribe.
Yeah.
We're people of planet Earth. All of us, all together. Okay. So we then move into the phase of healing, because healing is required. What's happened on planet Earth since the beginning of time has been a lack of understanding of how we can get along. And so there has been a lot of conflict. And so the trauma is in the etheric field, is in the unconscious field. It's there, it's surrounding us. We have in this lifetime, even though we weren't responsible for that, we are responsible for the healing of the traumas. We cannot be just indifferent to those things. So when we move into the phase of healing, then we come into the phase of reconciliation. For that to take place, the women as a collective need to understand themselves and understand the deeper aspects of sisterhood. For the men need to come together as a collective and understand the relational field with other men of brotherhood and manhood. It's only in those domains, in those fields, that the men can come to understand their own masculinity. Primarily, they need to discover that with their masculine brothers. In particular because we didn't have masculine role models, fathers, teachers who have taught us any of this. We're a little bit lost in the process of understanding our masculinity. But we're now beginning to put some of those pieces in place and recognize, okay, this is a big learning journey. And we're committed to that process, you and I. It's very beautiful. So it's not that we cannot do some of this work with the feminine or the feminine with the masculine, but the fundamental piece is for a man to understand his divine masculine and his divine feminine. He does that with his male brothers. That's where he learns these governing, these major life archetypal pieces. Okay. Then he is somewhat equipped when he then comes with whatever gender, but his beloved, or vice versa, her beloved, okay, then he's somewhat equipped to move into a union, communion, community type of experience. Yesterday I said, Igor, what is your dream around community? And you expressed it, and it was beautiful to hear you say the words that you said. Because my dream is no different from your dream, which is, it's something in my imagination, but it's also something that I have dreamed about for a long time, of that we can live with other people in kind ways, in generous ways, with gratitude, with appreciation, with thankfulness, with gratefulness. And so I know that that is possible, but I know getting there hasn't been easy because I have tried it a number of times, and we have accomplished a considerable amount. But we're still all so unfamiliar with all the major ingredients that's going to nourish a community experience, that it's just, we're still in the beginning stages. As I said, we're taking the first sacred step of how to do this. I haven't attached, I think that when I was younger, I was thinking, oh, it would be so sweet, it would be so lovely for this to happen fairly soon. Okay. But my patience has grown, and I haven't now put a time frame on it. I've realized that there's just, I need to make my contribution to make that happen in my small way, and step forward by teaching children in schools, teaching adult programs and events, teaching in festivals, offering workshops. That's the way I can create a community. And I work towards then of it being in maybe one living situation where we can actually say after a few years, we're doing it, we're making it happen. Okay, we're making healthy tantric community actually happen, and we're enjoying the process. Now, in enjoying the process, obviously our tears will come to the surface as well. So our tears and our past hurts and wounds and traumas, they're all part of the celebration process. They're all blessings. And so maybe in some form of conclusion, I would say that moving towards the uncomfortable as well as moving towards the comfortable That is, that's our task, that's calling us as we move together to be able to live more collectively, have a sense of belonging, of support, of caring, of loving one another. So this is my hope, this is my dream, and it will always be with me, and I'll stay to the end of time, even though there have been many disappointments along the path. Okay, these are learning experiences, and they make me stronger, and I feel more empowered by these experiences. And I'm listening at this moment. I don't know if you can hear on the video here, but while I've been talking, the birds have been singing the whole time, and they're singing love songs, and the animal kingdom and the bird kingdom and everything else, and they already know about community. And those sounds are just so magnificently sweet and beautiful that letting them into this video and they're part of it is just such a perfect ending here to the beginning of us as we move forward to create more community. We'll take bird energy with us, and we're going to go on a love journey there into community. So thank you for asking, Ego. Blessings to you all, and lots of love to you all out there. Yes, I love you.